you don't get to the final product without a million steps along the way. So you just have to start moving.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Today's guest is a wizard. He's highly entertaining, has great insights and stories, very fun and compassionate. Jon provides so many wonderful tools for achieving one's goals and has an incredible, resilient and empowering mindset, which I adore. You'll love his take on running. It blew my mind. But anyway, so let's get into this jam-packed episode. Jon Barinholtz is an actor, writer, and producer. He is currently starring as Payne Motors' heir and executive Wesley Payne on NBC's brand new comedy series, American Auto. In animation, Jon is the creator, writer, executive producer, and lends his voice to Netflix Chicago Party Aunt. You might also recognize him from his many other roles, such as Marcus in Superstore, Solar Opposites, Veep with Bob and David, The Mindy Project, MADtv, New Girl, Parks and Recreation, Key and Peele, Happy Endings, and The Oath. So in today's chat, we talk about ordering pizza while your wife's giving birth, NFTs, working with bad people, the wonders of improv, the Hollywood roller coaster experience, fear, hustling, his running mindset, and creating his own path to success. Also, before we get into it, stick around to the end where Jon answers all of your Superstore questions. And also, the video footage of this entire chat is now out, so check them out on YouTube under Michael Kahan. Before we get into this epic chat, if you'd like to keep up to date with the latest info regarding the podcast, follow Funny in Failure on Instagram and Facebook. I often post short clips and other cool stuff to keep you in the loop for upcoming and previous episodes. Also, if you'd like to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram and Twitter under Michael_Kahan. That's Kahan with a K. And lastly, the podcast comes out every week, 5 p.m. Mondays, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other terrific episodes. I hope you enjoy. This might be a really stupid way to start the podcast, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah.
I recently saw your bit on one of the late night talk show, what do you call it? The late night talk shows.
Yeah.
And I heard this story about how your wife gave birth to one of your children. I want to know, what was the flavored pizza?
Okay, great question. I think I'd be able to remember like his length and his birth weight and circumference and all that. And I think I know that stuff, but I definitely know the pizzas.
That's great to hear.
We ordered from Big Mama and Big Papa Pizzeria and in Tarzana, and it was I got one that was all cheese. I got one that was half pepperoni, half sausage. And those were 2 round ones. I mean, you asked the right guy a food question. I got a square pie.
Remember.
I got a square pie that was gluten-free crust because their gluten-free is actually like very good. It's like spongy.
Ooh,
like good.
That's rare.
Yeah, very rare. So I got a gluten-free with I did essentially like a Greek pizza, like feta and olives and onions. And then the other half of that was broccoli.
That's risky.
I went veggie heavy for my wife because I knew like she was going to be really hungry like at 4 a.m. So I got like broccoli, spinach, and also Kalamata olives, and that one was a fail because the spinach was disgusting. But
have you ever had salmon on pizza?
No. Oh, actually, no. I have. That's not true. I've had like essentially like a lox and bagel pizza before that was like salmon and had like capers and onions, like cream cheese on it. Really good.
That's my favorite here.
Yeah, it's really good.
And this could make or break this podcast. Pineapple on pizza.
What? Say that again.
This could make or break the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Pineapple on pizza. What are your thoughts?
So I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not a sweets guy on pizza. Like I'm not a sweets guy in anything with savory. I just like, especially like even like salads, like grapes in a salad. Fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't like. I can't do it. I one time had a pizza with pineapple on it, and it was at there's a place here called Mozza, and it's where I first got a job when I started working here. And they have a speck pizza that is like, it's like speck, and it's like their version of a Hawaiian. And it's the only one that I've had that I've been like, oh, this is awesome.
Okay. That's a good answer. You mostly hate it, but you had the one good one.
Yeah.
But on the more important side, we should probably give context to this story. What was your wife thinking when you had to leave while she's giving birth, or she'd just given birth, to go and get out a pizza?
Look, the beauty of an epidural is I think it was like, I could have done anything and it would have been fine. She knows my food anxiety, and just the idea. And it wasn't even the fact that like, it was a couple $100 worth of pizza. It wasn't even the money aspect. It's just, there's something about me that when like food is made and there's like a system, someone is delivering it, that like, I just want everything to go well. And I have a lot of anxiety over that. Like I'll track the delivery driver. It's very weird. It's a very weird thing. I don't know where it comes from. I should look into that. But yeah, she knew, like, even when I was going to order pizza, she's like, yeah, I don't care. Do whatever. I'm having a baby. And yeah, there was an appropriate amount of time post birth. I think like we had this like glory moment, and then that we were also right by the door where like I could go out to the lobby. So it all worked out. It was okay. We didn't, put it this way, there wasn't a conversation afterwards like, I can't believe you left and did that.
That's very important.
That's
Amazing. And also, just to give more context, you were being a mensch, and that you were ordering pizzas for everyone in the team as well. So it wasn't just...
No, it was Friday night. It was all the nurses there. It was change of shifts. So they had like 20 people there at the same time that were coming in and coming out. And I checked with them first to see if, like, because of COVID, I don't know if food could come in. And they were like, yes, we'd love that. That'd be great. So yeah, we ordered it for the whole gang over there.
You're a very kind man. And you also sound like really chilled, in the sense that you would just offer $200 worth of pizza to everyone. And yeah, like there was maybe a timing issue, who knows, but at least your wife was happy. But talking about, I also heard you on Lauren Ash's podcast, and you came across as a very chilled guy, which is awesome. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I want to know, how does that work in Hollywood? Because, you're probably being told that this show is going to be amazing, or you're going to get this gig and you don't get it, and all of this like Hollywood BS that a lot of the guests have spoken about. How do you deal with like that side?
Oh, just like, you mean like the roller coaster of it all? Yeah. I think yeah, there are, it's a good question. I think my personality is suited for it. I think you have to just kind of go with the punches here, right? Like you can't have expectations outside of like doing what you want to do when you're presenting what you want to do, right? Like as long as you're doing that, then I'm able to walk away things happy. Like it was funny. My wife asked me when we first started dating, and other people have asked me this too, but I specifically remember the conversation with her. She's like, she asked about like, hey, if you're up for a role against someone else, like, are you like competitive with that person? I'm like, and like, I am a chill guy, but I'm also very competitive, but like with myself, not with like other people. Like I get very competitive, and I always like push myself to do the best. And she asked me this question. I was like, no, I don't really care. It doesn't even factor into my like train of thought, because my thought is always, oh, if I go into the room specifically with like auditioning for a role, right? Like less so when like you're pitching a show, but like specifically like auditioning, testing in front of network people who can say yes or no. If I'm going in there and doing exactly what I want to do, and I walk out being like, that's what I wanted to do, it's irrelevant, whether they've hired someone else or not. I mean, it's not irrelevant to like my bottom line, like the paycheck, but like it's irrelevant to, oh, I did what I wanted to do. Clearly they wanted what the other person was doing. They were looking for something different. And like, that's fine. But like, I think like you can drive yourself crazy if you're chasing to do what you think the people who are hiring you want you to do, because I think that's when you get a headspace of like, oh, well, I could have done this differently. And then I could have gotten this and that person wouldn't have. But no, like people know when they want something, when they see it, and all you can do is show them what your take on something is. And I think that's like the great part about, that's like one of the cool sides of this business, right? It's like you have the choice to show what you want to do. And you can disagree. You can be like, hey, I think those people made a wrong decision because I would have been great at this. But at the end of the day, it's, it comes down to you. I think it comes down to to what you're putting out there.
I think that's an amazing take. And also you're right. Like you can't really compete with someone because you're going to be the most successful you. If you try and be someone else, there's already they're already there.
Yeah. And I've tested against people who are truly like my best friends, like 3 best friends going out for the same part. And I
like suck shit.
Yeah, I truly feel like I want them to kill it. I want all of us to kill it because they're not my twin and they don't talk the same way as me. So there's no threat there. There's nothing. It's just like, oh, we're all going to go do our thing. And the people who are, casting out their project were like that they've put a lot of love and work behind this. And I've been on the other side of producing a show, and it's their baby, like the role will be yours, but like the show is theirs. And like, they want to, they have a vision too. Like everyone has their own vision. It's just when the time comes, when someone else's vision aligns with what you think it is, and like they want to bring you into a project, that's great. And if it doesn't align, that's great. Like that's all this is mixing and matching and seeing what combinations work.
It's a very mature approach. And I know that after speaking to half the guests on this podcast, that's kind of the journey to get to that stage where it doesn't phase you. When you feel you've done the best job that you can, you put it to the side. But I would imagine starting up, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, it's a lot harder because you probably got a little bit more to prove. There's money and it's probably not coming in as much. And you probably don't have quite the relationship of how to like balance the rejections and the pain. Or has it always been easy for you?
No, it definitely gets easier for sure. Definitely, you don't put as much stank on it, right? Like you don't walk in with it being like so important, right? And like there has to be, you have to like walk in with passion and like walk into like wanting what you're going for. Otherwise, like what are you doing there? But you can't walk in with an expectation. I think that's when you can really screw yourself over. And yeah, it is definitely harder at the beginning because you're chasing a bit more, right? Like you need to get those points on the board so people realize like you're legitimate and you can keep getting roles. So it does feel like more important at the beginning, but that's why like, very rarely you see someone who's like first role is a leading role, right? Like that's why, especially in the TV system, it's designed, you get on and like you get a couple lines on something, right? So it's aim small, miss small, right? Like you get a little co-star where you got 2 lines on a sitcom, and you can come in and you can kill it, and you get a hit on the board, right? So it's about like kind of like building up that repetition, and I think people will know very quickly, oh, this is for me or this isn't for me. And yeah, I mean, just like looking back to the first things I booked, I don't think I was good. I don't think it was horrible, but like I knew it was exciting and I was happy to be there. But like I specifically remember one show where just like they gave me a shot and like I didn't do well, and it didn't ruin their show because it's such a small part. But in my head, I'm like, well, that was probably an F. That probably didn't look great. But those are the moments where like I knew I still wanted to do this. Like I was like, I'm not good right now. I'm not good. I have to get better. But the only way to get better is, God bless producers who will like hire you for little things, knowing you're not going to be great and knowing that it's not really going to affect their final product, and that they can have the best actor in there possible or the worst actor possible. And it's at the end of the day, it's not really going to affect their product.
Yeah.
And you kind of get, you get your reps in on those low stakes things. And if you're lucky enough to string some of those together and then start getting better, then, it's really fortunate. It's really fortunate.
It's still really interesting because regardless if it's like acting or comedy or even outside of the creative field, what I've seen is a lot of people want to do something, and then when they actually do it and it gets hard, not everyone, but some, and it's hard and it's challenging and they're not good at it, people tend to go the other way and say, it's not for me, and they give up. Whereas with you, it sounds like you kind of had this foresight that you were building towards something, which is quite rare in this scheme of things.
Yeah, I think I really attribute it to, I know it's going to be weird to say, I attribute it to running.
I know you've done marathons.
Yeah. I raced in college. I ran for my team at college, cross country and track. And I I kind of had this journey that I think it really framed kind of the rest of my life, or how at least how I approach things, of going towards the things that are uncomfortable and pushing through, knowing that like it's fine to fail, and but really putting yourself through discomfort, as opposed to just like, dipping your toe in and being like, it's too cold and running away, like jumping in and then coming out and being like, okay, that's not for me. I was a heavier kid. I was a big fat kid when I was in middle school and early part of high school. I just hadn't
running then.
No, yeah. My high school didn't have cuts. Like you could join any team, right? You wouldn't necessarily play, but you could join any team. And I guess I owe it all to my friend Harold Gerardo. So shout out to Harold if you're out there.
He's listening.
He was like my best friend in high school, and I was sleeping over at his house once because my parents were out of town. It was like a Friday, and I remember we were eating at Burger King by my high school, and it was freshman year. And he was like, I was like, oh, okay, we'll eat and we'll go back to your place. And he's like, oh, actually, I have to go to cross country practice first. And I was like, oh, he's like, just come to practice. And I was like, okay. So I showed up to practice, and it was a 2-mile run. And I did it in jeans and sambas. I remember it was wearing a Adidas samba. After the run, I puked. And a lot of my friends were on this team, and I was like, oh man, I wish I was good at this, but like, I'm not. And the coach was like, well, there's a race Sunday. If you want to jump the race, like anyone's welcome. I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do the race. And I did the race. It was at Niles West High School, and there was like 450 people in it.
Whoa.
And I finished 450th out of 450. And I was like, but it was a 2-miler. I finished last place, but it was faster than I did at the practice the day before. And I was like, oh, well, I did better. And I looked ridiculous. Like I was a big kid, and like, you wore these onesies and these very short shorts. So I was like, I'm past the phase of humiliation. Like I'm already out there doing this. Like who cares at this point? And I joined the team, and every race I had, I got a little bit faster. And it was kind of the trend for like the next year. And then sophomore year, I just hit a growth spurt and dropped. Like I shot up 6 inches and dropped 60 pounds. And it just like, and I kept running, and I was getting good at it. And I loved it. It was just like, it was just something that was like, oh, this was a really hard thing. It was so hard. And in that transformation phase, I remember being like, this is so hard for me because I'm big and I shouldn't be running. And I remember this guy, Eddie Friedheim, who was the captain at the time, who was just like this like really fit, amazing runner, but also like a really great person.
Oh, nice.
And he heard me say this, and he was like, do you think it's easy for me? And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, no, it hurts and it's not great. And I was like, oh, we're all uncomfortable doing this. So like, it's not like poor me. It's like, that's like, we're all here to like, you learn about yourself a lot when you push yourself. Like running is a great way to do that. You can do it in so many ways, but for me, it was that. And I, like I said, I had this growth spurt, and I shot up, and I became really quick. And my senior year, I won that race.
I lost
my freshman year. And I went on to race in college, and it was a huge part of my identity. I think was like formed with that, with just like, pushing through the hard stuff, because nothing will ever like, nothing is ever as hard as like going out and running 15 miles. Like that is hard. And that's something I was doing regularly, and I still go out for long runs, but like in comparison, everything else just feels easier. And I don't know. It's always framed my mindset of pushing through stuff. And so, yeah, thank you, Harold Gerardo, for preparing me for Hollywood.
What a legend. And it's also a huge credit to you, like being the fat kid. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment. I was a fat kid as well. Someone's still saying I'm a fat kid now. And to go, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment coming 450th. Huge credit to you to go, you know what, I forgot what your wording was, but it can't really get any worse, and to still continue. Yeah. As I said, that can be really scary, but you could have that can be pretty I don't know if the right word's embarrassing when you come like last, but you decided then and there you're going to keep on getting better. That's super rare. And I like how that's been carried on with you throughout your life. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think it's just really lucky to have supportive parents and family and friends. And, you know, while it was like embarrassing, my high school for the bigger part of it was like kind of an anomaly in itself, where it wasn't like an 80s movie high school where like there were like traditional bullies and stuff, like, you know, it was like everyone was like really supportive. And so it's just like, I think I just look, throw me in a different arena where like it would have been rougher and like maybe there was like meaner people surrounding me. Who knows if I would have pushed through. I think it's just like I hit a sweet spot. I was really lucky. I had encouragement, and it was also interesting and exciting for me to do something challenging, and it establishing that at that age continued through my life of like, oh, well, I always want to do things that are interesting and challenging to me. And so it's just like, I'm always curious to try out new things and, you know, push myself. And the worst that can happen is you fail, you know, like that's like, who cares?
Yeah, I agree. But it would have given you this mental fortitude. And I don't know what the timeline is with improv, but I imagine between those two,
you
would have very strong resilience and mental resilience, because those are really tough things, especially the running and the mental games that have come up for me when I've done running previously. There's a lot. So I would imagine that you're more equipped to deal with things because, am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just get in rhythm of, this is hard, this gets easier the more you do it. And you just apply that across everything in life. Like nothing will ever be easy at first, right? And as you get deeper into it, it should become actually harder, just maybe easier to manage. I think like when I look at it in phases, it was like I had this running phase that I did that with. And then after college, I joined my improv comedy troupe. I waited until like my second year because I was really nervous to do it. I knew I loved improv because I watched my brother do it, and I would go to Improv Olympic all the time on my own when I would be back in Chicago when I was away from college, and I loved it. I also was like, my brother was so good at it, and I was like, oh my God, he's so good, and these people are so funny, and I just know I'm not. I know that if I jump into it, it's going to be bad at first. But I did. I finally did. I jumped in college, which was like a great way to do it because it's very,
Supportive?
It's supportive, but also a low bar. Like college improv is like you're like, it's not what you're really doing afterwards. You're mostly just like getting drunk with your friends, and like there's like 10 people watching, and who cares? But like it got me in rhythm of like rehearsing and doing that. And
awesome.
Yeah. And when I went back to Chicago and did it, it was the same, right? Like when I started, it was hard. I was in like my stomach was sour before every class. My stomach was in knots. I still remember like I took the summer program at Improv Olympic, the summer between my junior and senior year of college. And before every class, I was the youngest person there. Everyone was like in their 20s. And I was like, 21 maybe, or 20. And no, what am I talking about? I did it between my sophomore and junior year. I was 20 years old. And before every class, I'd snuck a bottle of gin that my parents had in their freezer, and I would take a shot of gin, and I would have a cigarette before every class because I was so nervous. And I didn't smoke, and I wasn't like, I drank, but like, it was like the first time I would like self-soothe with that stuff.
Oh, really?
And I would do that before class to kind of get calm because A, I wasn't good. B, I was walking into kind of like the den where my brother really made a name for himself. So I was like, oh, the spotlight's really going to be on me. And there's going to be a lot of people who are like, fuck you, which there were. But it made me, it made me better,
That's also really interesting. And did the smoking impact your running?
I'm sure if I went heavy with it, it would have, but honestly, it would be like a cigarette before a class, an occasional cigarette at parties. If I was a heavy smoker, I wouldn't be able to be a runner. Yeah. But I would definitely hide it from my team. And again, I don't want to make it seem like I smoked all the time.
Yeah.
It'd be like less than a pack a year, maybe a half a pack a year. But also the fastest guy in our team, this guy Mike Sanders, who ran the 800, he smoked. And like I mean, again, he would hide it from the team. Like me and him, we knew each other smoked. He did it way more. But I was like, well, if Mike smokes, it's fine for me. And I never felt the difference. But
he's a super athlete. Then it's also interesting on the nervousness side. One guest springs to mind, Rob Hubel. I don't know if you've met him, and he said that he was shitting himself before he was doing improv. Genuinely terrified, like butterflies. And he said that he had to like reframe his mindset around the nervousness and see it as a positive, that he actually loved it. But he like changed it mentally, and it changed his life. And now he's obviously in the acting and comedy and improv world. Did you have to do something like that, or was it just dipping your toes and you're getting better?
No, I think I tried to control it a lot at first, right? Like I didn't understand, like they say, like just give in and like don't think, react. And like it's so easy to tell someone don't think, react. But like then you're putting them on stage in something that's like there's no framework, and like you can give them all the tools you want, but like I think it's a thing that for most people at first you either have it or you don't. And the good news is I didn't have the lack of fear because it was scary, and like or the lack of nerves rather. But I did have the lack of caring if it was bad, right? Like I was like, I know I'm not good. Like I know I'm not good. I know I'm funny with my friends. Everyone's funny with their friends. And I know when I'm watching a funny improviser, but I would really try to control when I would go out on stage. I had a very hard time going out with a blank slate and just reacting. And, you know, it caused for, I think, just like good improv, like 10% of the time, you know, and like the rest was like kind of shit. But that's what it is at first.
Sounds like me, but a better ratio.
but that's truly what it is. I think as you get into it more, you care less and it's less precious. And that's the great thing about Chicago is like, not exaggeration to say we were doing like 7 to 10 shows a week. Cause like you would double up on nights and you're just like, you would do a show at 10 and then like hang out with your friends and like, oh, we're on the 11 o'clock slot and we're jumping into midnight jam. And like, you're doing it so much that each show is less precious and like, you're just getting reps. And IO was great. IO is kind of where you learn teamwork. Second City is where you went to learn, I think, comedy math, like A plus B equals laugh.
Theory.
Yeah. And Annoyance Theater was really the place that game changed for me. It's where you learned to fail. Like Annoyance gave you the freedom to go out and take wild swings and have an audience of people like either be like, yeah, or like, it sucks, but like whatever, your friends.
Yeah.
And it, in a way where like you were encouraged to fail there. And that was like Mick Napier and Jen Eslin over the Annoyance. Like so many people that I think like are in kind of right now or in this like cool comedy world came out of this period of the Annoyance reboot from
That's
like
so cool.
2007-ish. Yeah.
When I've done improv, and I'm not an improviser by any means, I think the first place I did it was more Chicago based, but it felt unbelievable knowing that you could stuff up. And even if you stuffed up or you had a blank or someone just froze, you knew that your teammate had your back. And I found that such an amazing concept because I didn't really have that growing up. Like, yeah, I had friends that were supportive, but knowing that if like shit hit the fan, you had this team or this group of people who you don't even really know at the start that were there to support you. And I thought that was such a nice, I don't know what the right word is, but it's something that we could apply outside of just improv, that you support everyone. If the world was like that, it would just be the most amazing place. And that's how it should be. Our relationship shouldn't be about saying no. It's about yes, or how can I help and improve? And it just gave really great practical living skills and obviously comedy skills as well. Did you have that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like a big thing. I think, that yes and philosophy, sure, it really does just make you, be more considerate, and like it makes you a better listener. And I think these are just skills in life that are great. It's why a lot of like corporate retreats will like hire improvisers to come run workshops and stuff, because it's all about listening and like building on each other's ideas. It is. It's really great. And yeah. I think they are not just skills for successful improv, but successful life.
Do you apply it, or I guess because you've been doing it for so long, it would be probably hard to recognize what you've done, but did it help you, I guess, with like emotional understanding or interpersonal relationships when you were first doing it?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I was self-aware enough in like my early 20s when I was doing it to like apply it to that.
Yeah.
Like to make that connection. But I'm sure that was happening. Like I just don't think I was like mature enough then to realize it. But you know, now, you know, making that connection point, it's like, oh yes, of course that makes sense. Like, yeah, absolutely.
It's also really interesting for self-awareness. Like when I was first doing it many years ago, I'm like, why am I always playing the jerk character? Or why am I trying? I was like, whoa. And then you just pick up these connections. It's like therapy, but in like a really fun way.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, look, if I could be as interested in being self-reflective as I am in my late 30s as I am now, if I could take that and move that to what I was when I started improv, if I could like go back in time, oh God, I would get so much out of it. I would be able to do so much more self-work because I would be like reflective. But like at the time, I'm just like, we're out here to have fun and make jokes and let's do that. And like, God, I wish I could make those connection points back then, because then I would be like, oh yeah, you're trying to control scenes. Like, why are you trying to control things? Because you don't want them to go wrong. And like, that's putting up roadblocks. And it's like, yeah, if I was wise enough back then, I wish, you know, I wish you were there with me back then, Michael, to tell me to focus.
That's what we should have. Everyone should be forced to do improv as therapy. That should be a component of therapy.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of that. And I brought this up a few times, but I just find it so interesting. And even saying it out loud, when I first did it, there were half wanted to be in like comedy or writing or whatever. And the other half were there because they had really strong social anxiety. And I just found it so amazing that they would want to try improv because they said this is the scariest thing that they can imagine. And we're talking about like really strong social anxiety. And to see the transformation of, there's three that spring to mind, was incredible. To see where they were. And look, this was only like 6 or 8 week course, and it completely changed their life. Like listening, not judging themselves, eye contact, and even the confidence just to like speak up and go out of their comfort zone. When I saw them, like this, why does not everyone know about this? Regardless if you've got comedy aspirations, I just could not believe the personal transformation.
Yeah. No, I think absolutely. I think it can be so good. It can be so therapeutic. And you're seeing that develop in like different places now too. There's like, there's a lot of like groups that work with like people incarcerated to do improv with people who are incarcerated to help build a sense of self and community. There, like it is cool. It's like this like really cool art form that can be utilized in really cool ways, and yeah, it's really great.
And then I did not know that. That's awesome. And then from the fun side, I know that you've like toured and you have a writing partner, Rob, I believe, Belushi. Yeah. And I know that you were a hustler, especially at the younger age where you're like going and traveling around.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the play and the fun side when it's become like a job? And I know there were a few issues with other stuff, which you can get into if you want to, but how do you deal like maybe when a show bombs, or you're seeing it as more of a job and you're being like controlled in the sense that this is what you need to do?
Well, I know what you mean by the issues with the other stuff. So I'm happy to get anything. What do you mean? Like,
I know that one of your writing partner's father, I believe, we don't need to name names, that he was in charge of you guys as an improv duo, and he was very controlling.
Yes. So yes, yeah, I'm happy to talk about that.
I'm not in there for gossip. But I think it's important.
No.
We all
I think honestly, I am a big fan of not talking shit and just like doing your thing, but at the same time warning people about truly bad people. And I think that he is a truly bad person. But in terms of like Rob and I, when we were starting off, it really, that was part of the thrill. So like shifting it over to into a business where you're making income, that was like, it felt like the Wild West in a way, where like, we were, at the time I was in Chicago and I was coaching cross country at my old high school. I was working Second City nights and I was working at a law office during the day. So I was just like, I was truly like wall to wall working. And then I would, we'd finish our shift to Second City at night, and then we'd immediately go to IO and do shows. So it was just like, it was nonstop. You know, that's why you have all this energy in your 20s, because you're supposed to be raising babies then. You know, that's like why we're wired for that. But instead, I was choosing to do improv, and I chose to have babies in my 30s.
You chose right.
But yeah, you know, when Rob and I first, I think our first paid gig, we had a couple like small things, like one-offs that like, God, we just talked our way into getting these gigs that we just should not have gotten. And, you know, you kind of have to be a little bit of a bullshitter and hustler. And the first big paying gig we got was my alma mater, was Colgate University. And my senior year, we brought my brother and Seth Meyers in to do a 2-person show.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was awesome. And like at the time, Seth was on SNL, my brother's on MADtv. So he had never visited me at college. I was like, I want you to come visit me, and I can pay for your trip. And he was like, oh yeah, if you can cover flights, that's great. And Seth was like, yes, see if they can get us like a show fee and flights. I was like, great. So I went to the board and pitched them, and the board came back with something like $20,000. And I was like, what is that for? Like, what do you mean? Like, do we have to like, they're like, oh, well, that's, you know, we'll fly them out and then we'll give them their show fee. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I went to my brother and Seth, and they're like, oh yeah, we were going to come up for free, but this is great. We can like give a charity component and like come up, and, you know, this is great. So like they came up, they did the show. It was an awesome show. The whole, like half the campus was there. It's not a very big school. But then I was like, oh, colleges have like money to bring talent out. Like, great. So, you know, fast forward to like a year and a half later, I said to Rob, I was like, let me hit up Colgate. I still know people there who were like, you know, sophomores when I was a senior. They're seniors now. Let me see if they can bring us out to, we've been doing this now here for a year and a half. We can go out and do a workshop and do a show, and it'll be great. You know, like, it'll be super fun. So we convinced them to, they flew us out and they paid us like, you know, $7,500, which at the time was $3 million to us. Like, we are broke. We have no money. So the fact that they were going to cover airfare and then we were going to split 7,500 was just like, Rob and I couldn't believe it. We were like,
that's amazing.
We're going to be found out. They're going to run us out at some point. We did a workshop. It was, you know, you kind of like bullshit your way into it, but then you're there, you're like, oh, but we are really like, we're fostering this improv group. And then we got really into it. And like, we had these great workshops with people on the campus. And then we did like a really fun show. And we kind of realized like, hey, we can do this at Colgate, but we can do this other places. We have a commodity now, right? And that is our knowledge of what we've gone through the last year and a half. Look, we're not great performers, but we're fun. And we know, like, I think we're pretty good teachers. And specifically Rob is such a good teacher. So we were like, we have this product that we can offer and put it out there and see if people want to do it. And we strung together like, you know, maybe like 10 gigs in that first year that paid.
Wow.
The Colgate was the highest paying, but you know, we make like $1,000 here or there. And, you know, we felt like it was like, we're doing this. This is actually happening. And it just kind of grew from there. Like each year, like the bullshitness part of it, like went down and the real value went up. Cause like now, you know, now we've been doing this for 4 years and like, we're actually teaching in Chicago while also doing, you know, we're teaching teams, coaching teams while we're also performing, and we're booking actual commercials and shows in Chicago. So it's somehow become a thing now. And we just kind of like kept going with it. And yeah,
I would argue that you were providing value and then you guys like grew and you figured it out. But I know what you mean. Sometimes you got to like fake it until you make it. And then.
Yeah. And look, there was never a show where we didn't provide value, but you know, to put yourself out there, I think like, look, I think it would be unhealthy if we went out and we were like a year and a half into improv classes, be like, we have a lot to offer. And like, I think we were like, we should, you know, tell people what we can offer and like, see if they'll take it. And like, all right, maybe we're getting away with something, but like, I think it's healthy to be like a little bit like, I don't know if I hope they're getting a good value for what we're doing. But then after a while, it becomes apparent that like, oh, there is good value here. And you just, like you said, you fake it until you make it, and all of a sudden you're doing it. And it's just fun.
I wish my college offered that. I went, and I don't say this as an ego point, just to like contrast. I went to like the best university in my state. And they didn't offer shit. We didn't have any extracurricular things. We had like the one stand-up comedian that would come every year and no one cared. I don't even know if improv was a thing when I did it. I'm very jealous. But the reason that I bring it up is, you know, in Hollywood and all areas, I used to be an accountant, so I've had like terrible bosses and micromanagers. And you get that all the time. And I know that you're chilled and it probably doesn't bother you much, but you know, you're hustling, you're working with what sounds like one of your best mates. And then there's a guy kind of running it. And he was very controlling, and it was not, sounds like it's pretty terrible. And you're probably in a bit of conflict because it's your friend and his dad. And how do you deal with, and I say this not as a gossip point of view, I just say because it's very common in life that we have these situations. I just want to know, how did you kind of deal with that side and still playing and having fun?
You know, when it became not fun, it was kind of like, it was very apparent when it became not fun and it was time to leave. And for me, it was hard because it was just like, it sucked. Like this guy sucked. And, but for me, he'll just always be the worst guy I've ever worked for, you know, for Rob, it's that, and it's his dad. So it's like, so it's difficult. And like, I feel so bad for him. And like, Rob's such a sweet guy, and he's done like so much work to be like this like great person now and this great father. And because, you know, we were in our 20s, like we were like, you're assholes when you're in your early 20s. And, you know, he'll be the first to admit it. I'm not like outing him, but like he boozed a bunch and did drugs. Like we all did, but he like really went heavy into that stuff. And he's now like been clean for, I think 10 years, maybe.
Oh, amazing. Awesome.
Maybe more, maybe just hit his 11th. I should know, his best friend. But he's like, he just said she's done such amazing work on himself as a person. And this, just to give context, you know, our touring and what we were doing, stringing these gigs together, we brought in his father to then be like, because his father wanted to do it. And this is at a point where Rob is distant from his father, and we connected with him, and his father was like, we should do a company. Like, we should do this. And to me, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like, and it went from like, you know, a few gigs that we were hustling for here and there to like, oh, he's booking the gigs now, it's his company, but we're getting, you know, 30 calendar dates a year, and we're flying all over the country.
Oh, wow.
And it's fun, man. Like to fly into a city and to do an hour show, and like, it was short form improv. So it was like a bit more, you know, it's more like whose line is it anyway type of stuff. So a bit more contained than like free form improv, but it was like, it was really fun. And it was kind of a dream for a few months. And then it became very clear that it was like, it became more about control from his end. And it became less like, we're in a new city, we got to do this. And it was like, oh, we land in Charlotte. And like, we were like, okay, great. Rob and I were going to go take a jog and like check out the city. And it's like, well, no, you got to, when we land, we're all going to go to my hotel room, and no one's allowed to go out, and we're going to pitch movie ideas that I can be in. And we had like, there's 5 people that we were touring with who's our friends who like we love, and that made up the company of performers. And like, we would just have to sit in this guy's hotel room and pitch movie ideas that
oh my God,
what the fuck are we doing? And it was just like, it very quickly became like you're getting paid. You're not just getting paid for the show anymore. You're getting paid to be owned for the whole weekend. And it like, look, I took a leap of faith. I left my restaurant job, right? And like, this kind of took off, and I was like, look, this is better than working in the restaurant, and I'm performing, and I'm getting chops, and this is great, and this is an opportunity, and like, you want to be grateful. But then it kind of starts feeling like abuse in a way, right? Like, it just starts feeling like not fun. And then the performing stops being fun, because even the improv itself was like fucking canned. Like, we would, I don't even feel bad about saying this. It's my experience and whatever. But like, a lot of the, when you see a short form scene, you know, like, there are rhythms to it, right? So like, scenes can feel the same, but like, you're still coming up with it in the spot.
Yeah.
Well, in this, it was like very manicured to like, whenever certain people were in certain scenes, maybe the people who weren't as good as improvising, like the guy who was running the whole thing.
He did it.
Oh, he did it too. Like, he was in the scenes, and the scene started being like less made up and just like, hey, we're gonna do the exact same thing we did the night before.
In improv.
And make it pretend to be made up. It's so dirty, and you're like, what the fuck are we doing? Or very similar, right? Like very similar. And like,
that's
look,
so gross.
That's part of showmanship, right? Like stand-ups go around and do same.
Yeah, but improv, you know that's like an unwritten.
Dirty.
You can't. It's gross.
Dirty, and like it was kind of this unspoken thing, and like it just like it became not fun. And then as soon as there was some flexing on our end of like, okay, we're meeting at my room at 10 a.m. Like I'd be like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna go for a run. And Rob would be like, yeah, I'm gonna hang in my room. Like as soon as that started happening, it very quickly moved into well, that's not how this company works, and blah blah blah. And he first pitched to me that this is so fucked up. He first pitched to me. He said, well, you and Rob are like a writing team. So from now on, you're going to split your fee for the show. And we were like, all the performers making the same thing. And I was like, so I'm going to be making half as much as Meg or,
oh my God.
Or Brad. And like, and I was like, I'm not okay with that. So that was like the first like test. I was like, something's fucked up here. And then it became a very sick thing where I think he was trying to like pick on his son. And he let his son go and said, well, you're out. Rob's gone, but you can stay on.
Wow.
Like thinking that like I was so hungry for the money. And believe me, I needed the money so badly because I had no work. I needed the money, but he made such a huge miscalculation thinking that I'd be, and like, look, the other people stayed in the troupe and like, no shame on them. Like they have kids and shit. I didn't have kids at the time. They had to stay on a paycheck. They knew what was going on. They made their bed and like, God bless them. I walked. I was like, no, if you're firing Rob, who fucking put this thing together and who's an amazing performer, by the way, just because you want to have some power over him, fuck off. And I walked. We did one last show in Vegas, where he like, Rob and I did our last scene. We went backstage, and the next thing I know, he had pulled our wives onto stage, and it was like, it was kind of like the last straw where like it was just for like privacy of our wives. I won't say like,
yep.
Just get kind of like piggish what happened, and it sucked, man. It was a bad situation. Like I say, for me, it always just be it was a great learning experience. I got a lot out of it, and I also learned the type of person I don't want to work with, and like,
yeah, nice.
I think it just like the stars aligned where if I had a kid at the time, I would like to think I would still walk away from it. I didn't. And luckily my wife was working. So I was like, all right, I can walk away from this and like try to figure it out over the next couple of months, which is exactly what we did. And we just moved into a house. Like we had house payments and like, it was really tough, but man, when we walked away, and it was like half walk away, half fired, by the way. Like we got a call, not from him, but from someone else in the group that he made do it, and was like, hey, so going forward, Rob can come back, but you guys will alternate shows. You can't do shows together.
What?
It was just like, I was like, nah, that's bye. We're gone. And that was it. And I got to tell you, I woke up, I was so disappointed at the people. I think I had some anger in the short term at them.
Yeah, I do not blame you.
Yeah, but like, I remember I woke up the next day and I was just like, I felt 1,000,000 pounds lighter, man. I was just like, oh, this is great. I don't have to like stress about how I'm going to have to tell him I don't want to do the thing that he wants me to do with my time. And like, I don't have to go to his house and pitch ideas anymore. I was just like, this is what a relief this is. And yeah, like I said, a great learning experience. It will always be the worst boss I had to work with. But it taught me exactly how I want to work, and I will never make a decision for money. And because it worked out. And again, if it didn't work out and I didn't start stringing together things after that, I may be sitting here being like, I should never have left.
Yeah, but you made it work. You had that mentality, so it would have worked out anyway. And huge credit to you. The reason that I asked, I didn't know most of that story, is that you went through such a traumatic experience, and obviously you've got someone that you love in your writing partner. But to then come out and tell that story, and obviously that's like very traumatic, and just say it as more matter of fact, and you were still making jokes and stuff. It shows that you've obviously done the work. But to see all the lessons that you've learned. So I'm not saying everyone go and get trauma. I'm saying that you had a really shitty situation, and you got so much positives, and that's credit to you and your mindset and wanting to grow and improve.
Yeah. I think it's just like I said, like there are shitty things about it, but there's a lot of good that came out of it. And it bonded me to my best friend even more. And we just finished we just produced the whole show together that is being released, and like the first episode just got released, and like we're like,
okay. Can we pigeonhole that? Actually, no, tell me about it, because this is crazy. This is the NFT project, right?
Yes, it's one of two that I'm working on right now. And it's so weird that I am sitting here talking about two different NFT projects, by the way, because 8 months ago I was like, fuck NFTs, they're JPEGs and who gives a shit? What is going on? And then I met this lovely Aussie couple who brought me on to make these 6 animated shorts. They raised $315,000 for a horse charity through NFT sales.
Wow.
And then raised a production budget for these 6 shorts and handed it to me to be showrunner and create the concept.
Oh, you're the showrunner? I'm so positively jealous of you. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we're done. I mean, first episode just got released on YouTube yesterday, and it's really fun. The subsequent episodes 2 through 6 are like amazing, I think. And those will be done in a month. Like they're in all different phases of animation right now. So that'll satisfy kind of like the NFT sale portion of it. Like these 6 episodes will exist. But now Rob and I and these 2 other producers and the creators of the NFT art and the other writers I brought in, and like Colton Dunn and Katie Rich and Jim Wise.
I know Colton.
Yeah, they're great. We get to take these out now and pitch these to buyers, being like, here's 6 episodes. This is the concept of the show. Give us an actual budget, and we want to make it a show on TV, and we really think it can be. I think it's really funny and great and charming, and what a crazy thing to have. It's weird to be delivering a project in a space where I didn't even know existed this time last year. So
that's so awesome for you. And I've got 1,000 questions. What's it called? And if it's on YouTube, I will upload the link in the episode notes below.
Nice. The website is Glue Factory Show. And the show itself is called The Glue Factory. And so if you go to, I think it's gluefactoryshow.com is the website, and I think sure they linked it on YouTube. It's also on our Twitter. You can if you just Google Glue Factory Show episode 1, I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
It'll be in the episode notes on YouTube, people, so check it out.
It's really great.
Okay, I've got 1,000 questions about this, and I know I don't know anything about this world, and I'm sure you have to answer 1,000 questions. I barely know what an NFT is. Yeah. And I just love how I'm just saying words. You're going to come in and you're going to make me buy an NFT after this. I just find it crazy how that this game's kind of changing, and that you kind of empowered, because I know like I do screenwriting, and I know that you do heaps of things, in that this has given you a tool to be like your own like showrunner and producer and writer, and that it's kind of empowered you to do things which is very hard in this business. And then you've also created a charity through it, which I've forgotten its name, which I'll get you to talk to. But also you're empowering the community to get involved. And I believe if people bought NFTs, that they could be potentially involved in the writer's room. And you're actually heavily trying to get the community involved, which is unheard of in this space. So tell me, I word vomited, tell me everything.
Yeah, I'll try to go through it really quick. So NFTs are essentially, think of it as digital art. And, I know people, when I understood them as just digital art, I understood the concept, but it wasn't for me, right? Because I was like, I know people would say like, well, you can just copy and paste a JPEG, and then it like, I own that too. And like my answer to that was like, yeah, but you can technically also own a Picasso, and someone could, line for line draw that same Picasso, and you wouldn't be able to tell. So what's the difference? And I was like, but for me, the difference was like, one's hanging on your wall, one's like your profile picture. So who cares? So they weren't really for me. And then enter Sam and Lauren, this Aussie couple who were releasing these NFTs. And if you bought an NFT, they had a utility for it. There's an actual use, which is, yes, you have this now as a profile picture if you want, and it's a unique piece that doesn't exist. There's only one type of it, and they sold 10,000 unique pieces.
Whoa.
And by selling these out, we are going to generate $315,000 for a charity called Red Bucket Rescue, which rescues horses. And we're also going to generate a production budget to make 6 animated shorts based on the art that, you know, I was going to create the concept for, hire writers for, and then as an NFT holder, you would have essentially like a passcode. Think of it like your NFT, it's a piece of art, but it's also like a key, right? And now you have a key into a production room where you go onto our Discord and you can see, you know, we come to our community for, okay, episode 1, here's like the broken story for it that we broke. Now, our characters, Byron and Stanley, go into an office. You know, this is an office in a horse world. What are we seeing here? What types of things are we, and like getting pitches, right? Because you fill out this world in animation, like you need, so we would go to our community for specific assignments and general assignments. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work. It sounded, to be totally candid, a bit of a nightmare at first. Be like, oh, we're going to go out to potentially up to 10,000 people and ask for ideas. Like in writers' rooms that have 10 people in them, it's already too crowded. But the way it filtered out was like, it's only really a couple hundred people submitting, and the rest are just kind of like watching this process and can see how it works. And we would go through submissions and, you know, curate what worked for the story and like give feedback to, you know, things that like, hey, this didn't work, but this made us think about this. So thank you for that. And really made it like a community process. And it was a kind of like a window into the show, or a window into the how you create a show from the writing side. And that's kind of the utility of what this got you, right? And
have you done that before? The like show running and the right? Oh, really?
No, I mean, on Chicago Party Ant, I you know, created that and was one of the executive producers. So, and I was a very hands-on producer. Myself and Chris Wataski and Katie Rich were like kind of like the day-to-days on it. Like after the writing ended, we're going through, but this guy, Matt Craig, was the showrunner on that. And it's always something I've wanted to do. And I think probably one of the hardest jobs you can do. But what better opportunity on something where the stakes are just 6 episodes. And I was just coming out of this animation show. Like it literally just released in early September. And I was like, I think I can do this. I think I've trained under Matt enough where I know, and I certainly know all the components from the producing side of it. So I think we can put this together. And we assembled the personnel, and we did it. I mean, we're delivering, and it's only 6 months after we wrote them, which is crazy.
6 months, and it's an animation.
Yeah, I mean that show took 2.5 years. So like animation takes a long time, but again, they're shorter episodes. They're 10-ish minutes, so like half the length of one of those. But and for people who aren't watching or just listening, I'm pointing to a poster behind me of the Netflix show. So, but like I essentially dip my toe into this, but not dip my toe. I jump full in, and it's been really fun. And it's been a learning process in its own, but it's something that I love, and it's really great. And so that was kind of like, that was that NFT project. And like, as that was kind of off the ground and running, I started thinking like, hey, there's something here to use what is essentially crowdfunding with art and utility to create a project, right? And there's this project called The Electrician that I wanted to make into a graphic novel years ago with my friend Rudy Schaefer and Rana Akavan. And we developed the concept, and we were about to take it out, and then we all got other work, and we shelved it because we were like, we can come back to this. And in that interim, I went on to a lot of work. Rudy went on to crazy work. He was the art director of The Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Avatar.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, come September, I was like, hey, guys, I just did this. I'm doing this one thing called Glue Factory through the NFT space. I think this might be able to give us life to this project. Ike, my brother, and his producing partner, Dave, they were really keen on getting involved in the space. And I was like, well, what if we use this IP that we've already created and do the same thing, like release a series of NFTs, have the sale generate our budget for the graphic novel. And so instead of pitching it as a graphic novel, let's just make it with this money that we raise and do the same thing with like, bring the community along. But, you know, Glue Factory did such a good job of kind of like paving the way for that. And I was like, well, how can this not just be a straight up rip off of that, first of all, and unique to the graphic novel process? And like, the answer was, oh, well, we're going to we're going to give people ownership of the graphic novel. So we're like foregoing ownership and the community actually owns it. So we're going to do the same thing where we're doing like a community writer's room, but then we're going to, you know, make it so everyone has ownership in it. And that's kind of like the idea. So we're going to make this graphic novel and we're going to then pitch it as a TV show. And yeah, it's like, it's a whole new space. It's a whole new way to really, I know there's a lot of shit stuff in the NFT space right now. And I think that's what's getting a lot of the attention, but there's also this really cool corner of it, which I think is the future of the space and the future of Web3, which is go to the people, present them an idea as a creator, as an artist. And if they like that idea, they'll buy into it. And then they're telling you, go forth and make this. And, you know, we can all kind of succeed and bring this project out to the world, versus going to a buyer with your idea, them, you know, essentially owning most of it now, and then the buyer making it and then going to the people and being like, do you like this, people? We're essentially saying, hey, the people, hey, buyer, people like this. We already have the fan base, so you should buy into this. Like, we already have the army behind this. Why not? And it takes a lot of the guesswork out. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that over the next, I think it's very early. I think over the next like 2-3 years, you'll really start seeing stuff generate like this.
I think it's genius. It's because also I know very little about this space, but you know, like people can rip you off, but every like word you've used, it's been about community and not about ripping people off. And, you know, forgoing like ownership so that everyone's like involved and all of that stuff. That's really awesome. And it shows that you're in it to like actually be a part of it. And also like from an animation side, I've been writing, I just finished this animation script. I'm looking to sell it. I don't know if I can do it in Australia because we don't have what America has. Yeah. And 6 months, my God, that is insane. And then the next point, credit to you. I wrote down like 50 points. I'm just going to like blur it out.
Yeah, do it.
In this space, just, you know, you probably written have come up with heaps of ideas. It's very hard to either get in the room and you can pitch an idea, which I'm sure it's easier for you now given what you've achieved to pitch an idea, but then to actually get it made is very hard. But you've kind of gone your own way. And that's what succeeding in this business is all about. It's about not being told like yes or no. You went out with your team and you created something. And I think that's very empowering and important for everyone. Also me, because if I'm just waiting on a producer to make my $1 million 7 other scripts, it might happen, it might not. I need to, you know what I mean?
100%. You know, like I think like that's a huge, there's no, in some ways it's like any other business where you just have to like put forth good work and you know, keep working at it, right? To keep growing. And in some ways it's not like any other business where there's no one path, right? But the one thing you can control is what you do and the work you're putting in. And I've just always been, even back in Chicago, like it all started back in the Chicago days of like, we would write sketches and put up our own sketch show. And like, some of them sucked, you know, we'd have like a good sketch every now and then. And I started a video group when like YouTube was just coming out called Sad on Vacation, like some amazing comedians in that, like this guy, Connor O'Malley, and this guy, Sam Weiner, who's like this brilliant writer. Like it was 7 people and we were all just like-minded and funny. And we just made stuff. And I think like you just have to keep making stuff. And it is easy to get in a zone where, okay, well, I'm only going to pitch things through traditional channels. And it does get easier the deeper or higher up you get, the more success you have, right? Like, because you can be doing that. You have the access through your agency, through, you know, contacts to put things in front of buyers. And it's like so great. But ultimately, it's not the only path. And yeah, this was a way. This, like when Sam and Lauren from the Glue Factory came to me with this, I didn't quite understand the Web3 space, but I understood, the one thing I didn't understand was this. I understood that there was going to be a budget and I could create something that I could make. And so it was a no-brainer, right? Like someone's giving you a budget to run something. Why wouldn't you take that opportunity? It may suck, it may not work, but that's like, you don't get that opportunity. Like I think like even when you don't have a budget for stuff, like you can still go out and like be making things and, you know, be writing and being creating. And it's one, sometimes people ask me like, what's like a really good piece of advice you got for your career? And very early on, when I first moved out here, I was insanely lucky enough to work with Bob Odenkirk. And
Ooh.
he was one of the reasons I got into sketch comedy was because of Mr. Show, and his wife is my manager. What?
Sorry, were you in that show?
I did the reboot when they remade it. I did an episode of it and wrote a sketch in it, and I could die after that and be fulfilled. But it truly is one of the reasons I got into comedy. And I through my manager, who's Bob's wife, my friend Mort and I wrote with Bob. We were writing a sketch show together because he was going to start doing sketch again. And I was like, Bob's going to start doing sketch again? Like what? Like, okay, yes. And one of his things was, he's like, write every single day. Just, even if you get like a sentence out, just write, like put yourself in the rhythm of doing it. And that's, I took it in, and every single day since then, I think about it. And like, I don't achieve every day, you know? Yeah. And there's some days where I just can't but like, I think about it every day. And I feel not active and not productive if I'm not doing something. So like, there are definitely days where I miss and I don't get something down on paper, or get something on tape, or, you know, do something to go deeper into the career that I'm in. But it's almost every day. And I think like, that's just like such a great stay in rhythm is just such like an important thing, whether that's making a series of 6 animated shorts, or, you know, sitting at your desk and writing a sketch, or like writing out a bullet pointed idea. Like you don't get to the final product without a million steps along the way. So you just have to start moving.
That's really good advice. And I've received similar from guests on and off air about just try and do something every day. How can you improve? It might not even be necessarily writing, but what are you doing to be a better writer? And that can be going for a walk, or meditating, or speaking to people. And it's probably through this podcast that I've been able to, I'm almost completing my 7th screenplay. And it's just through speaking to people like you that just show that it can be done. And it's very important. And I know that a lot of people, regardless if they're a writer or in comedy, it's the advice, what can you do every day to improve? It's awesome. Okay. Oh, I've got so many questions. So I think to wrap up the podcast, we're going to do a rapid fire segment, because I received so many fan questions about Superstore. So we'll go through them, and then hopefully one day we'll do a part 2, because I think I've written down about literally 100 points, but let's do the fan questions first. I assume this is as Marcus. We'll start with a nice G-rated one. The list of celebrities you'd bone.
From Marcus, like as Marcus?
Yeah, let's go through Marcus.
Okay, as Marcus, I feel like you're looking at like, oh my God, that's so hard. Like, because Marcus could run the gamut from anywhere between like 80s, you know, like I could see Marcus being like, oh, Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune. I could also see Marcus being like Sarah Palin, just because it's Marcus. But I think like, I honestly, I would put his number one. One of the things I always said about Marcus is, it never came up in the show, but I was like, his favorite show is Wheel of Fortune. And I just like, that's such a no-brainer show for him. So I would say I would go Vanna White for him.
Very nice. I won't comment on them because I'll derail them. How much of you is in Marcus?
Oh, God, I think I'd like to say 20%, but maybe 40%.
A good 40%. What's the appeal of boob cheese?
It's a readily available product that, you know, that's all natural.
Did you get to improvise many of your lines?
Yes. A lot of people on that show did. It was one of the beautiful things about that cast and that ensemble and Justin Spitzer is there was a lot of play.
Yeah, we had Ben Feldman, we had Mark McKinney, we had Bo, Johnny Pemberton, we've had Kelly, we've had everyone. Funniest person on Superstore?
Oh my God. Oh, it's so hard. Honestly, it's so hard. It's impossible to say. Everyone made me laugh pretty much equally. If I had to pick like someone who would make me laugh, Steve Agee is pretty funny, man. And like not even like when we're in scene, but like between setups, he's amazing on screen, but like I can just always look at him and for like huge laugh.
Amazing. If you could play a different character in Superstore, who would it be?
Oh my God. Play a totally different character. I mean, I would love to play. If I could play Kaliko's part, if I could be Sandra, that would be a dream.
Great answer. This is a non-Superstore one. How did you get Chicago Party?
My friend created the Twitter account. It's based off of a Twitter account that my friend created. So cool. And it gained steam, and we thought it could be a TV show, and we partnered up with some Chicago friends, and we pitched it to Netflix, and they bought it.
I'm so, as I said, positively jealous. That's the dream. I'm so proud of you. Do you have a favorite scene or line in Superstore?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, the talking about shitting in the shower and stamping it down the drain was very hard to get through because I had to say it so seriously. And like it was like a normal thing. But I also loved when I lived inside the store, like inside the walls. Like I loved my little setup there.
This might be a bit tough, so we'll see. There was an episode where you're immersed in Filipino culture. Did you learn anything about the culture, or did anything leave a mark on you?
Yeah, I mean, I would go through. We had a Filipino writer, and Nico, who plays Mateo, he's Filipino, and they would walk me through the Tagalog of the lines in Tagalog and Filipino.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, I picked up a few words, and yeah.
This is from my mum, and I would never answer it. How does my son get a TV show? It's the only time I've listened to it. I thought it was a good one.
Great question. Listen to this podcast. Listen back to this specific podcast about, keep working, keep going at it, and, putting stuff out there.
Great answer, and thanks, Mum. I'm going to ask one of my questions.
Yeah.
Before we go, what is the one question I should have asked you? And before I will ask people how to follow you and keep up to date with you in a sec. What's the one question I should have asked you?
Oh my God. That's so hard. The one question you should have asked me. Oh, maybe, I didn't get to talk about American Auto, the show that I'm on now. So I would, I know you guys don't have it over there yet, but presumably if it follows the Superstore path, which we hope it does, it'll be there soon. And I love talking about the show. I love being on the show. It is the inverse of Superstore. If Superstore is the workers on the ground floor affected by the decisions at corporate, American Auto is people at corporate making those decisions. And it's really a companion show, but it's a bit more cutthroat and not as like warm and fuzzy as Superstore. And I just love it. I'm just so impressed with what Justin Spitzer and the writers did, and the world of it. So it's really fun.
I've heard many positive things, and my guest is largely international, so it's actually not that Australian. So there will be heaps of people, and I know that Australians will be able to figure out a way. But I've heard so many positives, and I'm going to check into it as well. Before we go, because I could speak to you for many more hours, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you and all of that cool stuff?
I'm so bad on social media, but so I had to actually look up my.
I'll also upload it all.
Getting better, thanks to some folks on the PR side. At Twitter, I'm at Jon Barinholtz, no H in John, so Jon Barinholtz. And on Instagram, I think I'm the same. Let me see. I'm the same. I'm Jon Barinholtz on Instagram, so you can check in, you can see what's going on. I'm not a huge poster, but I do post targeted when there's important things. So in some ways, that's even better.
I agree. And so all of that will be in the episode notes below. And there's a lot that they can check you out from that show, American Auto, and also the cool NFT projects that you're up to. So I appreciate that. And I could speak to you, as I said, for many hours. Thank you for being a mensch. And thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Jon talks about how the only real competition we face in the world is the one with ourselves. He encourages us to become better versions of ourselves by working on this as a daily practice. Jon is a great example of this as he challenges himself every day in order to perfect his craft and improve himself. Even with the so-called small things, which he ultimately believes leads to powerful results. His incredible story of when he initially started running and how he came dead last was inspirational. He took it day by day, one step at a time, and challenged himself to constantly improve. I also really love Jon's ability to think outside of the box, to create a concept which allows him to work and surround himself with amazing people. It's just a nice and positive reminder that there are so many ways to achieve the goal, or a goal, and just because it's been done the one way doesn't mean you have to continue with old trends and habits. Jon has gone his own way and the results are beautiful. So I'll leave you with this wonderful quote. Your competition is in the mirror, not out in the world. Focus today on outdoing your past instead of other people. If you like this episode, share it around, tell your mates. It really helps grow the podcast and spread the positivity and love. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.